They had planned it like a joke, the kind of cruelty adults pretended they were too mature for, yet executed with the same precision they used in high school. The rooftop lounge of the Avalon Grand shimmered with glass, brass, and sunset, and around a marble table sat Blake Mercer, Tessa Vaughn, Colin Price, and Damon Carlyle. 4 people who believed themselves untouchable. Blake lounged back in his chair, confidence dripping from the angle of his expensive watch. "We should finalize the guest list tonight," he said, scrolling through names with a kind of casual power that came naturally to him. "Reunions in 4 weeks. Let's make it memorable." Tessa snorted softly, without looking up from her phone. Memorable for who? Half these people peaked at 18. Colin swirled his bourbon with practiced arrogance. "Speaking of 18, he reached across the table and tapped Blake's iPad screen. "Add her. Evelyn Shaw." Tessa's head snapped up, laughter bursting too loudly in the elegant space. "Evie Shaw? Shaw the Shadow? I forgot she existed." Damon leaned in, grinning with predatory delight. "Oh, this is perfect. She probably works at some strip mall by now. Imagine her walking into the Avalon, dressed like... whatever she thinks is formal." Blake chuckled, typing her name onto the list with theatrical flourish. "Invitation to the Glenridge High Class of 2014 reunion," he narrated dramatically. "Black tie required. Held here, at the Avalon Grand." He looked up, his smile sharp. "She'll show up. People like her always do." Tessa raised her champagne flute. "Hope is a disease." They clinked their glasses together, 4 adults sealing a pact with the same poison they'd carried since their teenage years. And miles away, in a modest apartment on the outskirts of Portland, a small envelope slid through a mail slot. It landed on the floor with a soft whisper. Evelyn Shaw stood still for a moment before bending down to pick it up. Her fingers hesitated only briefly when she saw the school crest. Glenridge High. 10-year reunion. Her expression, calm as still water, didn't shift. She opened it slowly, eyes moving across the elegant lettering. The invitation glowed under the soft kitchen light, but there was something else in her gaze. A quiet depth, a kind of restrained storm. She folded the invitation once, then again. They had no idea who she had become, and that mistake would cost them everything. Evelyn Shaw had always moved like a shadow, quiet enough to be overlooked, steady enough to be underestimated. In the hallways of Glenridge High, she wasn't bullied with loud taunts or shoved into lockers. Her cruelty came in silence, the kind that made a person disappear without ever being touched. Teachers often forgot she was in their classes. Students walked past her as if she were a blurred photograph. Even the counselors, who prided themselves on seeing every student, never noticed when Evelyn spent entire lunch periods in the disused corner of the library. She had taught herself a long time ago that invisibility meant survival. But invisibility also gave her something no one expected: perspective. Evelyn saw everything. She noticed the fake apologies, the hidden hierarchies, the unspoken alliances. She saw who people became when they thought no one was watching, especially people like Blake Mercer. She remembered him laughing at Tessa's joke about Evelyn's thrift store shoes. She remembered Damon bragging loudly about his future startup, waving off anyone who didn't fit his ascending orbit. She remembered Colin asking to copy her homework, then pretending he didn't know her the next day. And she remembered Harper Linwood. Harper had been kind in fleeting moments, offering soft smiles like tiny lifelines. But she never stepped forward when Tessa whispered cruel things, or when Blake accidentally knocked books from Evelyn's hands. Harper's silence was gentler than the others, but silence had hurt just the same. Still, in the spaces where no one existed, not in their cliques, not in their polished futures, Evelyn had carved out something else. Purpose. While others posted about weekend parties, Evelyn studied. Not gossip, not trends, but procedures, patterns, security protocols, books on observation, emergency response, situational awareness, manuals older than the school itself. She read them all. And though no one ever saw, she practiced alone. Strength training at dawn. Drills she found online. Self-defense courses she saved up for working part-time night shifts. She understood danger long before she ever faced it. And when graduation came, she walked across the stage alone. No cheers, no cameras, just a single quiet breath. Then she stepped off the school grounds and, without looking back, walked towards the life she would build with her own hands. Years later, now holding the reunion invitation under dim kitchen lights, Evelyn set it down beside something else, something far more revealing. Her Iron Shield Global Security ID badge, Senior Protection Specialist. The past had underestimated her. The present would not survive the same mistake. The Avalon Grand shimmered like a monument to ego on the night the planning committee gathered again. Chandeliers glowed gold against the tall windows, reflecting a skyline that made Blake Mercer feel even richer than he already was. He thrived in places like this: high ceilings, expensive liquor, people who pretended he was important. He scrolled through catering menus on his tablet, tapping options without looking twice. "We should go with the signature champagne tower," he said. "It photographs well." Tessa Vaughn reclined in her velvet chair, legs crossed, phone angled perfectly to catch the light as she filmed another behind-the-scenes reunion prep video. "Everything photographs well here," she said, tossing her hair. "Even us." Colin Price smirked. "Speak for yourself." Damon Carlyle leaned forward, elbows resting on the table, a restless energy buzzing off him as if he couldn't sit still without checking his stock app. "Let's just make sure the night is unforgettable," he said. "A decade is a long time. Some people need reminders of where everyone stands." Tessa laughed. "Especially Evelyn Shaw." Blake's grin sharpened. "Oh, she'll come. That girl lived off crumbs of hope. A fancy invitation. She'll take the bait." Colin raised his glass. "Imagine her showing up in that oversized hoodie she wore every day. Still invisible. Still pathetic." They laughed, the sound thin and cruel, floating through the luxury like a cold draft. But miles away, Evelyn Shaw's preparations were nothing like theirs. There was no champagne, no curated aesthetic, no performative reunion glow-up. Just discipline. Just routine. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, tying back her hair with practiced precision. Her uniform lay neatly folded on the bed, the deep navy tactical shirt, the reinforced pants, the boots worn in just enough to move like a second skin. The Iron Shield insignia gleamed faintly under the lamplight. Evelyn checked her equipment, not to bring it, but because habit demanded it. Reflexes sharpened by real crises didn't allow for sloppiness. Everything she did carried the weight of memory. Nights guarding foreign dignitaries, hours spent in motorcades through hostile zones, quiet whispers through comms during moments the world never heard about. She slipped her ID badge into her wallet, not intending to show it. Just keeping it near her felt grounding. Then Evelyn placed the reunion invitation beside a sealed document, her commendation for the operation that had saved a first lady and her 2 children. She exhaled slowly. The game they thought they were playing was already beneath her. Just not beneath the truth that was coming. By the time the reunion evening arrived, the Avalon Grand looked more like a scene from a magazine spread than a hotel ballroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Seattle skyline, candles flickered on linen-draped tables, and a string quartet played the kind of music people pretended to appreciate. The air carried that curated blend of wealth, nostalgia, and hidden cruelty. Guests arrived in waves. Sleek suits, sparkling gowns, manufactured confidence. Hugs were exchanged with exaggerated excitement, as if 10 years had softened memories rather than sharpened them. Tessa Vaughn fluttered around the entrance, filming glamorous clips for her followers. "Reunion glow-up check," she chirped into her phone. "Let's see who actually made something of themselves." Blake Mercer adjusted his cufflinks at the door like he owned the place. Colin Price accepted a flute of champagne from a passing server, lifting it in silent toast to no one. Damon Carlyle stood nearby, checking his watch every few seconds, pretending he had better places to be. "So," Blake said, leaning toward Tessa with a conspiratorial grin, "any word if Evelyn Shaw RSVP'd?" Tessa tapped her screen dramatically. "Confirmed this morning. No +1. Her smile dripped satisfaction. "She's probably circling the block, trying to work up the courage." Colin laughed. "Or trying to find parking for whatever junk car she drives," Damon smirked. "She'll walk in here looking like a lost mall employee." Their laughter blended with the music, smooth and polished, hiding the venom underneath. Inside the ballroom, a massive projection screen cycled through yearbook photos, smiling faces frozen in time, hairstyles that had not aged well, outfits that made people groan with embarrassment. Guests pointed, laughed, reminisced. Then Evelyn Shaw's photo appeared. A hush fell, just long enough for anticipation to break, before the room erupted. "Evie the ghost!" someone shouted from the bar. "Oh my God, she really thought she was invisible," another voice chimed in. "Didn't she want to be a security guard?" "Yeah, good luck with that," someone added dismissively. The laughter swelled, comfortable and unrestrained, the kind of mockery people indulged in when they felt completely safe. But outside, safety was about to shatter. A pair of valet attendants exchanged confused glances as 3 black SUVs rolled up the driveway. Not the sleek chauffeured kind, but the heavy, reinforced kind used by federal and private protection teams. Their engines rumbled low, authoritative. Their arrival was synchronized, deliberate. Are those for the reunion?" a valet whispered. Inside, the quartet's music wavered, as if the walls themselves felt the shift. Something was coming. Something no one had prepared for. The music faltered first. One of the violinists glanced toward the entrance, bow, hovering uncertainly mid-note as a faint vibration traveled through the polished floor. Guests murmured, confused, pausing mid-conversation. Crystal glasses trembled. A server steadied a tray with both hands, eyes darting toward the hallway. Then the front doors opened, not gently, not politely, but with the unmistakable force of practiced coordination. 2 figures stepped inside before anyone could react. Broad-shouldered, dressed in dark tactical suits that blended into the shadows, earpieces blinking faintly, their posture straight and alert. They weren't hotel security. They weren't private event staff. They moved with the quiet authority of people who had nothing to prove because they had already survived things these guests couldn't fathom. Tessa froze mid-recording. Her phone dipped, trembling. "What? What is that?" she whispered. Blake straightened, pulse stuttering. "Okay, who hired security like this?" His voice carried false confidence, but his eyes betrayed him. He didn't understand what he was seeing. The agents didn't respond to anyone. They scanned the room with precision. Corners, exits, windows, potential threats. 2 more entered behind them, forming a perimeter so smooth it looked choreographed. And then the air shifted. A door to the driveway swung open, carrying the sound of idling engines and something else. Purpose. Every head turned as a 5th figure crossed the threshold, haloed by the hotel's golden light. Evelyn Shaw stepped into the ballroom. Gone was the quiet, invisible girl the guests remembered. Gone was Evie the ghost. The woman who entered commanded the room without a word. She wore the deep navy tactical uniform of Iron Shield Global, the embroidered insignia on her sleeve catching the chandelier's glow. Her posture was steady, shoulders aligned, every movement quiet and efficient. Her boots hit the marble floor with a slow, controlled rhythm. And the room, once filled with laughter and easy cruelty, fell into an eerie, unbroken silence. Whispers ignited like sparks. "Wait, that's Evelyn Shaw? She looks like federal security. Why does she have a tactical team? Is this real?" Colin's glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Damon swallowed hard. "No way! She works at a mall. She has to." But deep down, everyone knew the truth. No mall security officer arrived with an advance team. No, nobody walked like a woman who had escorted dignitaries through danger. No forgotten classmate drew the air out of a room simply by entering it. Evelyn didn't acknowledge the stares. She scanned the space once, calm, composed, assessing. She had been underestimated before. Not tonight. For a long moment, the ballroom held its breath. Evelyn Shaw stood just inside the entrance, framed by the soft glow of the chandeliers. Her expression was unreadable, her composure unshakable. The team that had arrived ahead of her maintained a silent wall of vigilance, eyes trained on exits, guests and corners the crowd hadn't even noticed existed. Then another figure stepped inside. This man moved with a different weight, calm authority, wrapped in a tailored charcoal suit. His presence didn't announce itself loudly. It didn't need to. Power radiated from him with every measured step. He carried himself like someone who had been first in and last out of more crises than anyone in the room could imagine. Director Samuel Keaton, head of Iron Shield Global Security, ex-Federal Protective Service, tactical operations legend, a man whose reputation alone could silence an army of executives, politicians, and generals. And tonight, he was walking toward Evelyn. Tessa Vaughn gasped. Blake Mercer straightened his jacket as if it might help him disappear. Damon Carlyle muttered something incoherent, and Colin Price rubbed his forehead like he wanted to erase the moment. Keaton stopped at Evelyn's side. Then, with a respect so sharp it cut through the entire ballroom, he inclined his head to her. "Evening, Shaw," he said quietly, voice low but carrying. "Sir," Evelyn replied, steady as stone. Keaton turned toward the stunned crowd. "For those who seem confused," he began, his gaze sweeping across faces draining of color. "Allow me to clarify who you just watched walk into this room." Tessa swallowed so loudly the nearest guests heard it. Keaton continued. "This woman," he said, resting one hand lightly behind him, "served as part of the protective detail assigned to the First Lady of Redenia during the coup attempt 3 years ago." A shockwave hit the room. Someone dropped a fork. A candle flickered violently. Keaton's voice hardened. During a 52-hour siege, while insurgents attempted to breach the presidential residence, while diplomats evacuated, while entire regions fell into chaos, this woman stayed. She protected the First Lady and her 2 children with such exceptional skill that every life under her watch survived. Silence. Absolute. Crushing. Blake's lips parted. Tessa's eyes brimmed without tears falling. Colin took a stumbling step back. Damon nearly sat down. Keaton's final words fell like a verdict. Without Evelyn Shaw, that family would not be alive today. Gasps rippled through the room like a physical force. Evelyn stood still, shoulders squared, gaze steady, not basking, not boasting, simply existing in a truth they had never imagined. The invisible girl they mocked had once protected a nation's heart. Tonight, she had protected her silence long enough. The room didn't breathe. Evelyn Shaw stood in the center of it, steady, composed, impossibly calm, while the 4 people who once dictated the social order of Glenridge High looked as though the ground had opened beneath them. Blake Mercer was the first to react. He stepped forward with a smile so forced it trembled at the edges. "Evelyn," he began, voice thin and cracking. "This is... wow. We had no idea." Evelyn turned her head slightly, her gaze settling on him with measured neutrality. "You didn't need to know," she said quietly. "You never cared." Blake froze. Tessa Vaughn attempted a soft, breathless laugh, brushing invisible dust from her dress. "You have to admit," she said, trying and failing to sound light, "showing up like this, with a whole security team, it's dramatic, right?" Evelyn blinked once. "No," she replied. "It's standard protocol." Tessa's mouth snapped shut. Colin Price found himself stepping forward, palms raised as if smoothing tension in a courtroom. "Look, Evie," Evelyn's eyes sharpened. It's Evelyn! He nodded too fast. Right, Evelyn. We only sent the invitation because we thought, maybe you'd want to reconnect. You know, see old friends. She tilted her head. Is that what you call yourselves? Damon Carlyle stepped in before Colin could respond. Okay, let's not make this a thing, he said, voice rising with fragile bravado. Everyone's different now. We all joked around in high school. It wasn't that serious. Evelyn's expression didn't shift. She reached into her jacket and pulled out her phone. With a swipe, she opened an email. An email thread. Blake's face drained of color. Tessa stumbled a half step. Colin swallowed hard. Damon whispered, No, no, no. Evelyn handed the phone to Director Keaton, who raised one brow but said nothing. Then she looked at the four of them, her voice steady as ice. I read everything you wrote. No one moved. The jokes about what I'd wear, she continued. The bets about whether I would show up. The plan to photograph me to prove some people never change. Tessa cupped a hand over her mouth. Blake's eyes glistened with something dangerously close to panic. Evelyn stepped closer, not looming, not threatening, just present in a way she never had been allowed to be. I came tonight, she said, because I wanted to see if any of you had changed. Her gaze swept across their faces. You didn't. The words fell like a hammer. Then she turned her back to them. And for the first time in their lives, they understood what it meant to be invisible, because she had made them disappear. Evelyn walked away from Blake, Tessa, Colin, and Damon without looking back. The crowd parted instinctively, giving her space the way people move aside for storms they don't understand. Her footsteps were steady, measured, echoing across the marble floor like the ticking of a clock finally reaching its hour. She headed towards the balcony doors, needing air, not out of panic, but clarity. Even strength needed oxygen. But before she could reach the exit, someone called her name. Evelyn! The voice wasn't sharp like Tessa's or arrogant like Blake's. It was soft, uncertain, carrying the tremor of a person who had swallowed guilt for far too long. Evelyn turned. Harper Linwood stood a few feet behind her, hands clasped, shoulders tense. She wore a simple navy dress, elegant but understated, nothing like the glittering spectacle the others had crafted for themselves. Her eyes, wide and gentle, brimmed with something that wasn't fear, just sorrow. I'm sorry, Harper whispered. Evelyn said nothing. The silence invited honesty. Harper took a shaky breath. I saw what they did to you. Back then. All of it. The whispers, the jokes, the way they ignored you. She pressed a hand to her chest, voice cracking. And I did nothing. I wasn't brave enough to stand up to them. I should have been. You didn't deserve any of it. Evelyn studied her for a long moment. Harper's shoulders trembled, but her gaze didn't waver. There was no performance here. No audience. Just truth. Raw and uncomfortable. You were the only one who ever looked at me, Evelyn finally said, her voice quiet. Even if you didn't speak. Harper blinked hard. I wish I had. I wish I could go back. You can't, Evelyn replied gently. None of us can. Harper nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you. Of who you became. I always knew there was something powerful in you. I just didn't have the courage to say it. For the first time that night, Evelyn's expression softened. Not a smile, something subtler. Recognition. Closure. She reached out and placed a hand on Harper's shoulder. Thank you, she said. That means more than you know. Harper let out a breath she'd been holding for 10 years. As Evelyn turned toward the balcony again, the crowd shifted around them. This time, the space they offered wasn't out of fear. It was respect. And it followed her all the way to the open doors, where the night waited, quiet, cool, ready to wash away the last shadows of the girl she had once been. The balcony was quiet, suspended above the glittering Seattle skyline. City lights shimmered like distant constellations, but Evelyn didn't look at them. She rested her hands on the cool railing, breathing slowly, letting the night settle over her like armor she didn't have to wear. Behind her, muted conversations began again, uncertain, fractured, stripped of their earlier arrogance. People no longer whispered about her. They whispered because of her. The glass door slid open. Evelyn didn't turn. She already knew the footsteps, steady, weight-balanced, purposeful. A gait trained by years of fieldwork. Director Samuel Keaton joined her at the railing. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Keaton exhaled, the sound low and thoughtful. "You handled yourself well," he said. "I've seen seasoned operators fall apart under less." Evelyn gave a faint, ironic breath. "Old habits. Stay calm. Don't react. Assess." Keaton nodded. "Still carrying that principle from Redenia?" She hesitated. "It kept them alive." Silence again. Heavy this time. Keaton glanced at her, reading what she didn't say. "You never told them what you actually did." Evelyn studied the skyline. "Why would I? They weren't part of that world." "No," Keaton agreed. "But they made themselves judge and jury when you were 17. His voice hardened. "They hammered you down until you believed disappearing was the safest choice." Evelyn swallowed, the truth burning quietly. "I thought, maybe if I stayed small enough, quiet enough, they'd forget I existed." "And look how that turned out," Keaton murmured. Evelyn straightened slightly. She remembered the night of the siege, the smoke, the explosions, the terrified children clinging to her vest, the First Lady's trembling hands as Evelyn whispered instructions in the dark. Her own heartbeat steady and controlled, not because she felt no fear, but because fear had no place in duty. She remembered carrying a child through a collapsing corridor. She remembered shielding the First Lady with her own body. She remembered the moment the extraction team burst through the smoke and realized she had kept every life under her watch intact. She had learned something that day. Strength didn't come from being seen. Real strength came from refusing to break, even when no one was watching. Evelyn's voice was quiet when she finally spoke. "They didn't deserve explanations." "No," Keaton agreed, "but they needed the truth." Evelyn looked out over Seattle, the wind lifting a strand of her hair. "And tonight," she said, "they finally saw it." Evelyn stepped back into the ballroom one last time, not because she needed to, but because endings deserved to be faced head-on. Conversations quieted again, though not out of mockery this time. Something in the room had shifted, as if the air itself recognized that the balance of power had been permanently rewritten. Her footsteps echoed through the space. This time, no one laughed. No one whispered. No one dared meet her eyes unless they meant it. Blake Mercer stood near the bar, shoulders slumped, the confidence drained from his expression. He tried to speak when she passed, but no sound came out. The words he had once thrown like weapons were gone. Tessa Vaughn clutched her phone to her chest, not recording, not posing, just holding it like a shield that had finally failed her. When Evelyn's gaze brushed by her, she looked down, cheeks burning with shame that arrived 10 years too late. Colin Price didn't even pretend to be composed. His hands trembled as he leaned on a table, staring at her, as if seeing a ghost he had mocked, and now feared. Damon Carlyle took a step back when she drew near, the man who once towered over her shrinking in a way no physical movement could hide. Evelyn didn't address them, not one of them. There was nothing left to say. Director Keaton observed from a distance, arms folded, a quiet pride in the set of his jaw. Harper Linwood stood near the exit, offering Evelyn a small, tentative smile, an unspoken promise that not all memories needed to remain stained. Evelyn stopped in the center of the ballroom and looked up. Her senior yearbook photo appeared on the enormous screen again. Pale face, oversized glasses, hair pulled tight, the ghost of a girl who tried so hard to survive invisibility. Evelyn stared at that old version of herself. Then she exhaled, slow and steady. "I survived you," she whispered, not to the crowd, not to her classmates, but to the past. And she turned away. As she walked toward the entrance, guests stepped aside, not out of fear, but reverence, creating a path she had never been granted as a teenager. Keaton nodded once as she passed. Harper wiped a tear discreetly. Outside, the Iron Shield SUVs waited, engines quietly rumbling. A young agent opened the door for her. "Ready to go, ma'am." Evelyn looked back at the building, at the window still glowing, at the ghosts she had finally laid to rest. "Yes," she said, and she stepped inside. As the convoy pulled away, tire tracks carved deep lines across the manicured grass, marks that would stay for weeks. A reminder. A scar on the earth that whispered a truth no one at that reunion would ever forget. They tried to break her. They failed. She came back stronger than the world they once used to define her.